Okay, welcome to the July 2020 horoscope. And yes, this is this is my mask. See this? Now, listen, folks, I want you to understand this is an octopus. See it? That's a little boat. And there's his tentacles. See? It's a kraken, damn it. So a friend of mine asked me to make a mask for him, and I said, do you have any specific requests? And he said, well, maybe a kraken, So I said, okay, I'll make a kraken. So I made this. It's all hand stitched. Sorry, back spasms. And of course, I test drove it before I sent it out, and a bunch of people were like, "Oh, what a cute ghost! It's a kraken, damn it!" I feel like a little kid who draws this stick figure giraffe that looks like, I don't know, whatever stick figure giraffes look like when 4-year-olds draw it. And you're like, oh, that's such a cute puppy. And they're like, it's a giraffe. So anyway, so there's that. So today is June 30th. Tomorrow is July 1st when I'm making this video. So there are a couple of things to note about this particular month, and we'll try and keep this brief. One, we have an eclipse coming up on July 5th, and it will be a particularly problematic eclipse, only in that with Mercury retrograde, Mars in Aries, and Saturn having just returned to Capricorn, one of the things we can expect right now moving through probably about July 5th or 6th is for the problematic personalities in any group and every group, whether it's the group that is joined by blood, or the group that is joined by political affiliation, or even the group that's joined by social affiliations like country clubs, or social tribes, as it were, even internet groups. The more distinctly problematic personalities and extreme risk takers are going to be even more difficult and dangerous at this time. So do be aware of that, especially for those of you who live in the United States, with the July 4th celebrations coming up, and also the amount of tension we are all living with right now as these things go with our beloved administration and all of their nonsense. So there's that. So once we get through this week, we should be okay, but this is definitely not an easy week. And also remember, this is literally on the end of a previous eclipse and a previous eclipse after that. So we're kind of finishing out a little window of things here, right? Problematic things. So there's that. Now, we do have a very big sore spot that we're going to hit as we get closer to July 20th. When we get down to July 20th, there's some pretty gnarly aspects going on that are going to have all of us kind of taking measure and stock of our lives and ourselves, and it's a very important and very fruitful time to do some internal work, and reprioritizing things and making some life strategies and plans. So if you're not sure what you should be doing, and you're not understanding that Saturn returning to Capricorn is a very big deal right now, this is a really good time to sit down and get serious about it. There's a long entry about that particular new moon in the middle of the month on the blog post, so I recommend you go and read that. Otherwise, the worst of things is not to come. So no matter what's going on this month, trust me when I tell you, it's just going to get more complicated come August. So use this time to enjoy the people around you and to enjoy your life, and to make some mental health efforts where you can in terms of socialization and getting to know your neighbors. And the most important thing right now is make your contacts. Make contacts with your neighbors and your friends, and expand and improve your social circles. Know who you're dealing with. This is very important. As we get down to August, this is going to be even more critical, because you don't know who you're dealing with. You don't know who a person is until they're in hot water. So there's that. So I'm going to take a pause because I have a stranger over here, and my dog is trapped under a tree over here. Okay, so I've taken my mask off because it's a little warm out here, and I'm by myself. The closest thing to me right now is my dog, who's at this particular moment in time easily 6 feet or more away from me. So come over this way. So this month, moving ahead, this is charts, so you know what I'm looking at. The big three things I want you to think about this month, and I really want you to use this to your advantage, okay, is that Mercury is in Cancer, Venus is in Gemini, and Mars is in Aries. Now, in and of themselves is not necessarily a big woohoo combination. Like, it's not horrible and it's not fantastic either, but it can be useful. So this is a great time to get to know your neighbors. This is a great time to expand your social circles. This is a great time to improve and strengthen your social connections, now more than ever. So go out and enjoy people as best you can. Try not to be a douche. And we know who those people are. So this is a great time to expand, strengthen, and reinforce all of the social networks moving forward. And we're going to need those things as we get closer to August and certainly through the end of the year. Know who you're dealing with. And honestly, in most cases, you don't really know who you're dealing with until they're in hot water. Then when they're backed in the corner, that's when you find out what you got on your hands. Otherwise, this should be, except for the very beginning of the month, which is this week right now, and that week around the new moon of the 20th. Should be around the 20th. I don't have the date written down in front of me. It's all written down in the blog post. And a few days after that, this should actually be a very pleasant month. Once we get past that new moon and the third week of the month, that last week of July should be really lovely. So if you have any type of social activities that you really, really want to plan or consider doing, that would be a great time to do it that last week of July. Not the third week, and certainly not the first week. The 4th of July, I'm not keen on for a number of reasons. A lot of them having to do with, again, extreme personalities and high-risk personalities being out in force right now. And basically just looking for an excuse to cause trouble. I mean, Jesus, do we ever get a break around here? So, isn't that beautiful? Let's see, move here. Sorry, new toys. Okay, now Mars will be traveling through the first and moving into the second decan of Aries. So this is an Aries Leo decan. So it moves from an Aries decan to a Leo decan, decanate. And typically when you have Mars in those decanates, they're very passionate, they're very dramatic, they're very over the top. While Mars is in its first decanate of Aries, it's in its most true expression. So we're going to find that people are very simplistic, almost to the point of innocence or gullibility or naivete in their intentions and their actions. Literally, when they say, I didn't know, like a child would do, because a child doesn't think that far ahead. They're not that sophisticated in their thinking. This is what we can expect while Mars is in the first decade of Aries. While Mars is in this first decade of Aries, here's some good news. It will be making a nice sextile to that Venus in Gemini, which gives us a very flirty, kind of sexy vibe. So people are really going to be responsive and courageous and brave about letting their interest and appreciation of you be known. So don't be mean about it. I mean, you can certainly be a coquette, right? Certainly a little flirty back. But don't be mean about it, and don't be unappreciative of the fact that somebody's found it within themselves to kind of go out on a limb and let you know, hey baby, you're kind of cute. So that's a nice feel-good vibe that we're dealing with through the first part of the month until we get down to the new moon. Now, when Mars goes into the second decade of Aries, will be towards the end of the month. So you're probably wondering, like, well, is this good or is it bad? Well, remember that week around the new moon is just challenging for everybody. Once you get past that, with Mars in the Leo decade of its sign, then it's going to be all kinds of play, party, romance, theater, drama, the things that reaffirm and reinforce life and make us feel good about being alive. So we'll get some reprieve from this, but we got some, bumpy spots to get through first. Venus will remain in Gemini through the whole month. So Venus will be in, we'll actually go through all three decanates. That's not true. It's going to get close to the third decade, but Venus is going to be in most of its decanates, moving into the third decade by the end of the month. The first 2/3 of the month with Venus and Gemini, people are going to be very talkative, very chatty, very open to discussion and communication. Well, as best as some people are going to be, obviously. By the time we get to the end of the month, that's when all that trouble starts, right? So be aware that the last week of the month heading into August is when the fur starts to fly, especially by the time we get into August. But the last week of, sorry, my dog, the last week of June should give us a little bit of a preview about what we might expect as we move into as we move into August. Some other things that I would look at, now remember also too, Saturn has moved backwards into Capricorn. This is a very, very big deal. I can't stress this enough. Saturn in its rulership, it is in its rulership in Capricorn. It is also in rulership in Aquarius. It rules both signs. But Saturn in Capricorn is the more true expression because its rulership doesn't change. Aquarius, the rulership changes to Uranus after Uranus was discovered. So Saturn becomes like the grandfather clause in something. It becomes the hidden ruler that we forget about. It's the grandfather of the family. But Saturn in Capricorn has been and continues to be the ruler of Capricorn. So there's tremendous strength there. Saturn returning to Capricorn is a second chance. We're all getting a second chance to do things better and to do things right. Golden rule sort of stuff. Things that stand the test of time. Things that have impact and import for generations, legacies, our grandkids, right? Not just us, but what we're leaving behind for them in the bigger picture. So also too, remember, this is important, Capricorn and Saturn are both about management of resources. So above and beyond all the moral stuff that we live by, golden rule, all that sort of stuff, the other thing that Saturn and Capricorn is very much focused on are the management of resources. So we can expect a tremendous amount of focus, will be and should be, on the resources that we have at hand and how we're going to navigate and manage them moving into the future. Because limitation is also a Saturnine Capricorn keyword, and it's very much about the limitations of these resources that we're dealing with. So not just in your personal life as you're dealing with limitations on your resources now, but also big picture stuff, children, grandchildren, their grandchildren, things moving forward, the limitations of the resources we're leaving behind for them. These are the conversations we need to be having and taking seriously as we kind of get through this and tighten our belts to get through the difficulties that we're dealing with right now. So, I mean, this might all sound horrible, but forewarned is forearmed. And the fact of the matter is, if you know this is what's going on, it's easier to plan for it. And if you can plan for it, you can navigate it. The worst feeling in the world is being helpless and hopeless. Helpless because you don't or can't do something. Hopeless because you wouldn't even know what to do if you could do it, right? You don't even know where you're going with this stuff. So you're not helpless. You have time. Saturn and Capricorn, going back to Capricorn, giving us a chance for a do-over. You're not helpless. You're just a little stressed right now in terms of navigating limitations of resources. So genius is not born in times of comfort. Genius is born in times of limitation. So when there are resource restrictions, that's when real genius comes out. Okay? So find your inner genius. Now, the other thing is that the sun will continue its journey through Cancer all month long. It's a very Cancer month. Happy birthday, Cancers. And normally this would be a really great time for friends and family and loved ones. And, you know, June is typically a month, especially around here in the United States. It's time for celebration and, you know, being with people that we care about. But the focus and emphasis this month with Saturn rolling through Cancer and moving into oppositions with Jupiter retrograde, Saturn retrograde, Pluto retrograde. What a party, right? As it moves into opposition with those planets, bang, 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 especially as we get closer to the end of the month, it's a very sobering time. This is not a time where we're feeling really light and fluffy and happy and, you know, carefree. Carefree may be the exact opposite of what we're feeling right now. But it is, in many ways, sobering times are good times because they help us literally like winnow down to the things that really matter, the essentials in life, the essentials that sustain us. So as we move through the month, and certainly when we move closer to the end of the month, we will really be focused on prioritizing things, right? Prioritizing the things that matter and sustain us, not ideological nonsense and ideological injuries and complaints like we've been dealing with for the last 5 or 6 years, right? When Saturn went in Capricorn, and just before that with all that Sag, Jesus, God, I'm so glad to see that go. All that, the Sag, Gemini emphasis that we were dealing with all this time, and then the Saturn and Capricorn, and the Jupiter and Sag, right? Ooh, remember that? And the Chiron and Aries, damn Chiron and Aries. So a lot of that had to do with identity politics, right? You know, who am I in this world? What is my value in this world? And if I'm not this, then who am I and what value do I have, right? Who who am I and who are you to decide for me who I am? All of these things were happening with Chiron and Aries and Jupiter and Sagittarius, ideologies, right? Saturn and Capricorn, limitations, reality, restrictions, authority, right? Who has that authority? What's really the intrinsic necessary thing? Okay? And also Neptune in Pisces, and then of course Uranus went in Taurus, and Uranus totally destabilizes things that we thought we could take for granted, right? So it's not been an easy ride. It's been an important one. And remember, the future belongs to the kids, not to us. So they're reshaping the future as they're navigating into it. And we're just kind of along for the ride to hold up the struts so the building doesn't collapse while they're remodeling rooms. But at the end of the day, it's not been an easy ride. So we're mostly through all of that. Thank God. But we're not out of the woods yet. So this month, because August won't be easy, I want you to make it a point for your mental health, and so you have the things in place to help you get through August, and certainly moving forward from there, but August is a hot spot. I want you to focus on your mental health. I want you to focus on really finding and establishing and reinforcing solid, positive, healthy, non-toxic relationships with your community, with your neighbors, with your siblings, with your friends, with anybody that you care about that is of the nature and character to give you the critical resources you need to mentally get through anything, right? So hateful people do not need to apply at this time. Sorry. You know, by the time I figure out how to use this equipment, like, we're going to be off to doing other things, like with 3-dimensional teleportation videos or something. Anyway, so there's that. And the last thing I would give you, I don't really have a lot to give you because most of the pertinent hardcore stuff is, again, written down in the blog. You need time to sit and process that. And I know some of you don't want to hear that, so I'm not going to put it in the video. But this, I want you to really enjoy July as best you can. Wear your masks. Okay? And it's a cracking, damn it. And be good to each other and be kind to yourselves. So we've still got some stuff to get through. But this should be otherwise a very pleasant month and a very flirty, sexy month. So for those of you also, you know, sidebar, for those of you who are out there single and mingling, this is a challenging, complicated time to meet new people, obviously, because how are you going to kiss somebody and not breathe on them, right? You know, love in the time of face masks. But it is possible, and this may be a really great time to slow your roll and actually get to know the person from the inside out before you get your hormones all in a bunch trying to make somebody into something that they aren't and would never be. So getting to know the person, not the exterior desirable shell, is exactly what's called for this month. And you may find that the person you're looking for is, yes, possibly somebody who could be not only your lover or your life mate, but your best friend as well. But that requires getting to know them and keeping your pants up. Okay, so that's it for the July. That's it for I have no sense of time anymore. That is it for the July report, and it looks like it's going to rain here shortly, so I'm going to go. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for indulging me while I work through my new equipment. And again, let's take a little 360. I'm so loving this thing. Look at this. So, we'll talk to you guys soon. Look for the written blog post for more information. There will also be additional or supplemental information on the podcast as soon as I have a chance to get it up. And that's it. There may or may not be an August report. Just not that it's of any serious significant concern to you guys, but just so you know, this last couple of weeks have not been, they've not been, this has just been a really hard time for a lot of us in various very personal ways. And, you know, the emphasis on Cancer and Gemini will certainly make it very personal. In my own family, I have a family member who is in her 70s that for all intents and appearances appears to have mid to late stage breast cancer. So we are dealing with this. So if the coronavirus doesn't kill her, the cancer might. So this is also why, sorry, This is also why you have to wear your mask, because 14 days of being asymptomatic is a long time for someone to go home and not know that you've just given them coronavirus and infect somebody that they live with who's on chemotherapy. You couldn't possibly know that about every person you come in contact with, that you are not wearing your mask properly around and transmitting this virus, because you don't know that you have the virus, because 14 days being asymptomatic is a long time. And that's a lot of people that are going to cross your path that you're infecting and not know it. So there's no way for you to know that you may be the agent of death for somebody else. So just out of kindness and courtesy to the rest of the human race, wear your damn mask. All right, see you guys later.